You have the job, maybe the relationship. You've got a place to live, you've got people in your life who love you, and yet there is this feeling, this quiet, persistent feeling, like something important's missing, and you don't even know what it is. That feeling, that's what I want to talk about with you today. Feeling empty inside, and if you've ever typed, "Why do I feel empty?" into a search bar at midnight and felt a little bit ashamed doing it, then this is for you. Because here's what I want you to know before we go any further. The fact that you feel this way doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It might mean that something is very, very right, because at least there's a part of you that's paying attention. So stay with me, because by the end of this, you're going to understand exactly why this emptiness shows up, what it's trying to tell you, and what you can do about it. Practical stuff, real stuff, no platitudes. Okay, let me start with something that happened when I was working with some students at a college. So I've run programs at over 70 colleges and universities worldwide, so I've had this conversation quite a bit. So a young woman came up to me after a workshop. She had everything going for her, and she was studying something that she had chosen. She had friends, her family were really proud of her, and she pulled me aside and she said, almost in a whisper, "I just feel nothing. And I feel terrible for saying that because I have no reason to." And I said to her, "I know exactly what you mean. When I was 19 years old, I attempted to take my own life. And here's the strange thing. From the outside, my life didn't look like a crisis. I wasn't homeless. I wasn't completely isolated. But inside, there was this really vast, hollow space that I didn't have words for. You know, I felt disconnected from everything. I felt disconnected from the people around me, from myself, from any sense that things were going to be okay." Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying emptiness always leads there. It doesn't. But that girl at that college and the version of me at 19, and maybe you right now, or maybe you at different moments in your life, we're all describing the same thing. Emotional numbness, feeling disconnected, going through the days and thinking, is this it? And society doesn't really help us here, because society hands us a checklist. Get the education, get the career, find the partner, get married, buy the thing, buy the house, post the photo of the thing, and repeat. And we do all of that. And then we look around and we think, okay, I did the checklist. Why don't I feel more? Right? So here's something I want to challenge you on. And I'm asking you to really sit with this question rather than just agreeing with me and moving on. Are you happy? Or are you comfortable? Because those two things feel similar. They can look identical from the outside, but they're not the same thing. So comfort is the absence of obvious pain. Happiness is something active. It's got texture, it's got direction, it's got meaning. Comfort says, nothing's really wrong. Happiness says, this is mine, this matters, I'm alive in this. So I spent years after my recovery chasing comfort and calling it happiness. I traveled, 13 years I was on the road, rode a motorcycle through India all the way up into the Himalayas, did this for 4 years. I toured Europe twice with Chuck Berry. I spent time in magical places like Bhutan, which, if you don't know, is literally the country that built a national policy around gross national happiness instead of GDP. I was working with some extraordinary people, including the Dalai Lama. And you would think, she must have been so happy. And honestly, so much of it was extraordinary. But I also spent parts of that time still running, still filling space, not sitting long enough to notice what was underneath. So the emptiness doesn't care how interesting your life looks. This is why I want to talk about what emptiness actually is, because once you understand the mechanism, You stop fighting it and start working with it. So emotional emptiness, and I'm not talking about clinical depression here. That's a different conversation. But this kind of hollow feeling, this disconnection, almost always has one of a few things underneath it. The first is values misalignment. So this is the big one, and almost nobody talks about it. When you're living a life that doesn't match what actually matters to you, and I mean really matters, not what you were told should matter, your system starts sending a signal, and that signal feels like emptiness. So think of it this way. Your values are like a compass. So if you're walking in the wrong direction, even if the path is smooth and well lit, the compass keeps pulling. It doesn't stop. It just quietly insists. And after a while, that insistence starts to feel like numbness, like going through the motions, like what is the point? So let me ask you this. When did you last do something that felt like it was genuinely yours? Not something you were supposed to want, not something that looked good, something that actually lined up with who you are. And for some of you, that question is going to bring a lot up, and that's okay. So the second thing underneath emptiness is disconnection. Disconnection from other people and disconnection from yourself. You know, we are living in the loneliest era in human history in some ways, despite being more connected than ever. And I put connected in air quotes because we all know the difference between 200 likes and one real conversation. So feeling disconnected from your own emotions, from meaningful relationships, from any sense of purpose, creates exactly this hollow quality. So you're present in your life, but you're not really there. And this is something I consistently see with the people I work with. They've got very good at performing their life. They smile in the photos, they have the answers at the meeting, they're fine. But inside, quiet, empty, a kind of waiting. So the third one is suppressed emotion. When we don't process feelings, when we push things down for long enough, what we eventually end up with is not feeling much of anything. So the numbness isn't an absence, it's a response. It's your nervous system protecting you from something it never got help carrying. I know this one personally. You know, growing up, I learned very early that certain feelings were not safe to have, and I got very good at not having them until that strategy stopped working. What I didn't know then, and what I know now, is that the way out isn't to push harder, it's to start very gently to turn toward yourself. So you feel empty, you know it's not your circumstances being wrong, you know the checklist didn't fix it, so what now? I'm going to give you 3 things. These aren't magic, they're not going to flip a switch, but they work, and I know they work because they've worked on me, and I've watched them work with thousands of people across a couple of decades of doing this. Number 1, stop trying to think your way out of it. So this is almost everyone's first instinct. Figure out why, analyze it, fix it, and the problem is emptiness isn't a logic problem. It lives in your body, in your nervous system, and in the part of you that doesn't respond to a good argument. So what does work is presence. Even just a few minutes a day of actually stopping. No phone, no podcast, no noise, and noticing what's there. Not fixing it, just noticing. This is one of the foundational things I teach in my meditation work with the 10-minute mind, and it sounds almost offensively simple, but it is genuinely the starting point. Number 2 is to follow a thread of genuine curiosity, not productivity, not self-improvement, but genuine, a wonder about this curiosity. So when did you last do something just because it interested you, not because it was useful, right? The other day I went down to the tide pools and I just spent a whole bunch of time just in the tide pools looking around, lifting rocks, finding crabs, finding fish, just seeing what was there out of curiosity. So those threads of curiosity, wherever they lead, tend to go towards your actual values, toward the direction the compass is trying to point. Number 3, audit your life against your values, not against the checklist. So get a piece of paper. Write down the 5 things that matter to you most if you've not done this work with me. Not what you think should matter, but what actually does. Might be connection, creativity, adventure, peace, service, family, whatever it is. And now look at your weekly life. How much of your time is spent in alignment with those things? For a lot of people, the gap between those 2 lists is actually where the emptiness lies. So one thing I've built, because I want something practical for you, we're doing this kind of inner work, is this free quiz, the happiness quiz. It's not a personality quiz. It's a diagnostic tool that shows you exactly where you are, and more importantly, gives you a clear starting point of where to work on. Go to I Intend to Be Happy. I'll link it in the description. If this is landing for you, I really encourage you to take this quiz. It takes a few minutes, and people consistently tell me it's the most useful few minutes they've spent in this kind of self-inquiry. All right? I want to end with something that I wish someone had said to me at 19. The emptiness you feel isn't a verdict on your life. It's not evidence that you're broken, or that happiness isn't available to you, or that you missed something that everyone else got. It is information. It is your deeper self trying to get your attention. And the very fact that you feel it, that you're here wondering about it, taking it seriously, means that part of you is still oriented towards something real, something more than the checklist. So I've spent years in some of the most remote and extraordinary places on earth looking for that something. And what I eventually understood, sitting still in a way that I'd resisted for years, is that it was never somewhere else. You don't have to take a motorcycle ride through the Himalayas, though I do recommend it. You just have to start turning toward yourself with honesty and without judgment. That's the work, and it's completely worth doing. If this resonated with you, I'd love you to subscribe. I put out new episodes all through the week, the real practical work of building a life that actually feels like yours from the inside. And if you want to go deeper, do the quiz and let's see if there's some way I can help you. All right? As always, be kind, take care, go gently in the world.